Let's talk about potentially the biggest leak for Black Ops 6 Zombies. A few days ago, some leakers were able to get into sections of the Black Ops 6 code through Steam's public database. And in there, a reference was found to there being a classic mode for zombies. This was right alongside the other modes that we already know exist, such as Standard, which is just our normal way of playing zombies right now. There's also a guided mode to help introduce new players to the mode and help them through the main quest for the launch maps. Now obviously this got the community going into full-on freak out mode immediately, and the flames were only fanned further even more by Treyarch removing all references to this classic mode from the files in under an hour of it being posted on Twitter. If this is a real leak, then the community believes that this could be a more traditional style of zombies returning to Black Ops 6 like we saw in Black Ops 1, 2, or 3. So it begs the question, is it cut content, is it something that Treyarch is cooking for later in Black Ops 6's life cycle, or is it just leftover code from when the game was first in development a couple of years ago? Well, surprisingly, everyone has an argument that's equally as valid here. The Call of Duty code is an absolute mess and still includes bits and pieces from every previous game going all the way back to World at War, which released in 2008. Even if it's not being used, tons of stuff still gets left behind in the files every year, so that's something that definitely needs to be considered here. One thing working against this theory though is that as far as anyone was able to find, that one reference to classic mode is all that there is. Nothing else related to it slipped out into the public at least. This is also a mode that Treyarch knows for a fact would be insanely popular with the online zombies community, so I believe that if it was at least planned for launch, then 100% would have been revealed by now. Call of Duty Next would have been a great chance to showcase that, especially on a map like Liberty Falls, where it would have suited that more classic style of zombies that we'd seen in years past. Something like a town style of gameplay would have really been good for it. And here's where we get to the most important part of the video. If classic mode does not exist right now, Treyarch needs to drop everything they are doing and start working on it this second. Regardless of where you stand on the BO6 zombies debate of old zombies versus new zombies, it's clear that a rift has been created that is only driving the community further apart, which is something that we definitely do not need more of, considering over the last couple years the community has been more fractured than it ever has been. The insane amounts of hate from both sides has become overwhelming, and it's gotten to the point of it being best if we got the best of both worlds. Having a classic zombies mode alongside a more modern Cold War style of gameplay while taking place on the same maps would be fantastic. It certainly wouldn't solve all the debates because for various reasons like the maps not being designed in the older style or the HUD not being one that people really enjoy, but it would turn things down from a nuclear meltdown to merely a house fire. Some of you are probably thinking that changing Black Ops 6 that drastically with only a couple months left until a release would probably be way too much for Treyarch to handle, and yes, I'll actually agree with you on this. However, classic zombies being released post-launch for something like Season 1 or Season 1 Reloaded might be more realistic than you actually think that it is. When Vanguard Zombies first released a couple of years ago, it was an absolute mess of a game, launching with an objective style of gameplay where you would complete an objective to move to the next round. Everyone hated this, so Treyarch actually decided to make big changes to the entire mode and communicated it would just take some time. After that announcement, we got a small change called the Void Objective, where players would enter a portal to a small area of Shinonuma and rounds would pass like in round-based zombies while you're in there. Then another few months after that, Treyarch released a fully fledged round-based zombies map for Shinonuma Reborn with a traditional main quest to follow it. That's a lot of big changes to make when you keep in mind that Vanguard was a Sledgehammer developed game. So Treyarch had to work within a game that they did not create and release stuff on Sledgehammer's schedule, which definitely messes things up. I know that they work on the same engine, but every single studio has their own different style of it, so they probably weren't as familiar with working on that style that Sledgehammer was working on, and that definitely slowed them down. With Black Ops 6, however, this is a game they created and should know the ins and outs of, and that would be able to speed up production times on something like a classic zombies mode. As I said, it definitely wouldn't be possible to implement before launch, but it's definitely something Treyarch can do and has done before when the community is very unhappy about something. So if you want classic zombies, then the best way to get that is by telling Treyarch about it in a constructive way, by making posts on Twitter or on Reddit, liking videos talking about it, and keeping the conversation going as why it would benefit the game. In an ideal world, this also wouldn't detract from the other style of gameplay the Cold War style that people have been complaining about. There is still a lot of people who really enjoy that, so I think if there was a way for Treyarch to dually implement this classic style of zombies alongside the newer style, then that would be absolutely fantastic. I do realize that this would be a big ask from Treyarch, because in my last video I talked about how Treyarch probably doesn't have the same amount of resources for zombies as they have in the past. But I do think they have put a ton of time and money into the marketing of zombies this year, and it's clearly playing a big factor. So if there was one time for Treyarch to basically beg Activision to give them more development time and more people to actually work on zombies again, then I think this probably would be the year for them to do it. And I know I've been talking about classic zombies a lot in this video and how it could exist, but if it did, then what should it actually look like? So I asked the community to tell me what they would include in a classic mode. The Gaming Revolution says sex should be added, and honestly, I can't disagree with you. On a more serious note, there's a bunch of things that were actually really common in all of the replies that I got, so let's go over a bunch of them. The most common response that I saw was that they wanted a classic point system. If you don't know, in older zombies, you would shoot zombies and you would get 10 points for each of those shots, and then depending on whether you knifed them, you hit them on a certain spot of the body, or you gave them a headshot, it would reward you with different amounts of points. Whereas in modern zombies, you only get points for killing a zombie, and honestly, this is something that has caused a lot of debate in the community, so I'm not going to get in the middle of that, but this is something that people really want, and I think it actually could be implemented super easily if Treyarch was to go down that route. Now, would it also be super broken, and would the zombie health also probably have to be adjusted in that sense? Yes, because as far as we know, on round 1, you could spawn in and 2-hit kill a zombie, so you probably wouldn't be getting too many points if you were to go back to the classic style of points. The second most common that I saw is to remove armor and then go back to the old shield system. This is another one that I agree with. I think that the armor system is just so tedious, and it's the most thing that makes it feel like Warzone. That was a big problem that I had with Cold War, was that you were constantly looking around for armor plates, especially with MW3 zombies. It felt like you were always putting on armor and you were never actually just playing the game. Another super common response was that they wanted loadouts removed and going back to starting with a pistol instead on round 1. This one I don't agree with as much. This is something that you can already use a starting pistol if you wanted to right at the start of games. Nothing's really stopping you. I understand from a meta perspective, people are going to use the best stuff that they possibly can. I'm not going to deny that this is something the community absolutely wants, and I do think it would be good for a classic style of zombies to have back. But as for right now, I don't really think it's that big of a deal. There was also a lot of comments talking about removing the Wonder Fizz. Once again, I absolutely agree. The Wonder Fizz, at least in Cold War, was so overpowered that it's unbelievable. Once you got to round 50, 60, 70, 80, 100, you had so many points that if you went and took it down, you just spammed on the Wonder Fizz. You never actually went to the machines to go get perks. You just spam the Wonder Fizz and you have everything back in 3 seconds. Removing that would actually cause consequences for going down, especially because, like I said, in Cold War, you could just go into Ether Shroud and you wouldn't even have to worry about it at all. You could throw a Casimir mechanism and you would just be able to get all your perks back in 3 seconds. This goes along with another request of 2 or 3 hit down without Juggernog and 5 hit down with Juggernog system. I'm going to totally agree with this one, but with the caveat that they remove super sprinters. I personally think that those are some of the worst things that have ever been added to zombies and are basically artificial difficulty because zombies has gotten too easy. Super sprinters in a classic mode where removing a lot of the stuff that makes you super overpowered would just be really annoying and cause people to not play. Other than that, I think it would be a good change because there's been a lot of debate in the community about the supposed 22 hit down that you could take in Black Ops 6 zombies, not taking into account the way that zombies deal damage and all this other sort of stuff, but it is still something that has been the source of a lot of drama. I'm also going to fold these next 2 into one, and it's removing rarities and going back to a single pack-a-punch instead of having to pack-a-punch your gun 3 times. Both of these I would also definitely do. The rarity system is a bit too confusing for new players to get into, and I still really don't know how much more damage a green gun does compared to a gray one, or how much a gold one does to a purple. So just having guns deal a base amount of damage would actually be a good thing. Plus the single pack-a-punch thing, absolutely. I've always thought that having to go back to the pack-a-punch machine and be pack-a-punching up until round 30 is just kind of stupid. Lastly, we've got the request to remove ammo boxes. Yes, yes, yes. I do not think that ammo boxes are good for zombies whatsoever. They make every gun insanely overpowered, sort of like how there was mechanics in Black Ops 3 where you could have the pack-a-punch abilities. With certain ones like Deadwire or Turned, you can basically go to round 200 with any gun. So removing mechanics like that, where you can basically just use any gun whatsoever to get to as high of a round as you possibly can, I think is just counterproductive to the way that Zombies is. You want to have people be able to use guns that they really want to be able to get to round 40 or 50, but once you get past that, it really should be limited to the best guns. So all in all, I think if all of that is implemented into a classic Zombies mode and Treyarch does take on this feedback, it could be a huge moment for the Zombies community, and I think it would solve a lot of the current problems that people are really having. If you're wondering, the reason that I didn't mention the HUD thing is because I do think that honestly, regardless of whether there's going to be a classic mode or not, Treyarch is probably going to change the HUD before launch because they've seen so much feedback on it. But if there was a classic mode for Zombies, what else would you guys add to it that I didn't mention in this video? So leave it in the comments, and while you're down there, leave a like and subscribe. You guys have been absolutely insane on this channel so far, so thank you so much. Now go watch the videos that are coming up on screen. There's a lot of good ones. You'll probably like them. Thank you for watching. Love you. Bye-bye.